people have the confidence, the courage to say things that they would not be able to say in person online. And they are also confident that it would get to the right ears.
So people have every right to use platforms which they think will help accentuate their plight. The civic space itself is, in our society now, is highly militarized. So if you're trying to use the social media bill, for me, it amounts to using it to gag the freedom of expression, which is the legal right of every citizen. However people call or criticize the Nigerian media, it's one of the most vibrant in the world.
Don't ever be afraid that the government will harass you, the government will arrest you. They can file frivolous charges. The question is whose conviction? If you want to go and protest peacefully, this is part of the safeguard. All the people, go and check. In the last 4 years that the police have arrested for protesting in Lagos, I challenge you, the police have not secured one conviction.
We need to understand the importance of attitude, culture, civility, spiritedness, and intellectualism. If we lose this nation today, all those positions that we call you, moderator, Mr. Macaroni, human rights lawyer, they will all go down with you. In fact, you cannot tell the next place or the next civic space that you find yourself, and it is whatever crumbs that you see around there that will be your lot. The president can be a beggar in another man's land. The journalist can be a sweeper in another man's land. This space is our space. We cannot afford to kill it. Nigeria first, before any interest at all.
Absolutely. Nigeria first before any interest at all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism, WSCIJ, I welcome you all to the public presentation of the Civic Space Guard Media Monitoring Report titled Hushed Voices and the Media's Defense of the Civic Space. Now, this report, which assessed the coverage of civic space infractions by the Nigerian media, is a component of the Civic Space Guard project, an intervention that fortifies the media's position as an independent protector of civic society. And of course, it is implemented by the WSCIJ with support from the Luminate Group, MacArthur Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and the Open Society Foundations Africa, that's OS Africa. Well, the WSCIJ hopes that this report will serve as a veritable tool for raising conversations and media campaigns among all of the stakeholders, and of course, embolden the media to defend the shrinking civic space in Nigeria through, of course, what we do best, our reportage. Well, this morning, we will pause here and take the national anthem as we begin this event. And I'll ask that we all take the second stanza of our national anthem as a commitment to our nation, Nigeria, and a prayer for the country. So please, the national anthem. Amen to that. Well, my name is Kayode Okikiolu, and I'll be your host this morning. And I should add that I'm honored, I'm privileged to be moderating this event today. And I'd like to say to you, wherever you are joining us from here in Nigeria, outside, wherever it is you are, you're welcome. And you are warmly welcome indeed. Permit me to especially welcome some of our guests for this event. We're all guests, very special, but I'd like to just mention some of our special guests for this event. And I'll begin by recognizing the presence of Zainab Suleiman Okino, who is a chair of the editorial board of Blueprint Newspapers. Good morning, madam, and thank you for joining us. I'd also like to mention that she will be reviewing. Good morning. I'd like to mention that she will be reviewing the report, so she'll play a major role in today's event. So look out for her in the coming minutes. I'd also like to recognize the presence of Anthony Okechukwu Ojukwu, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He is the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria. Mr. Ojukwu, you're welcome. All right, also with us is Mary Abayomi Fatile, who is a winner radio category of the Wole Soyinka Award for Investigative Reporting 2021. Mary, it is good to have you. And well, I've not had the opportunity to say congratulations. So let me just say it's belated, but congratulations. And thank you for joining us as well. Also joining us this morning is Juliana Francis, 2014 WSCIJ Nigerian Investigative Journalist of the Year. Thank you, Juliana, for being a part of this event this morning as well. Well, we'll eventually welcome other special guests as soon as they join, but I'd also like to welcome members of my constituency. We'll welcome media professionals, civil society actors, and public and private sector players. We're really glad to have you join us today. Well, at this point, we'll take the opening remarks. We'll set the ball rolling and take the opening remarks from Moturayo Alaka, who is the Executive Director and CEO at WSCIJ. And I'd like you to join me virtually, clap your hands if you can, to welcome her this morning.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Kayode, for the introductions and for welcoming all of our guests. I welcome you all again to this meeting, which is the public presentation of our Civic Space Guard Media Monitoring Report. The next slide, please. Just to introduce that the Civic Space Guard project is a project that we are using to fortify the position of the media as an independent protector of the civic space. We are working hard at renewing the awareness on the laws that are against the sanctity of the civic space and the ones that are for the sanctity of the civic space, so that the people are empowered to better participate as citizens of the country. We believe very strongly that citizenry in Nigeria needs to be better activated, and to activate that, people need to be free and they need to know that they are free to act. This project has 4 main parts. We have some of our reporters who we rewarded last year when we launched the project. 14 of them were finalists on the project. And then we have also had some of our reporters who we supported to a study tour in South Africa. They joined the Africa Investigative Journalism Conference, and then they also had a day's study tour and discussed their work around civic space, around some of their reports that had to do with brutality or other encroachments on the civic space. This report is also part of the project. We monitored 150 media reports across many genres of the media and across 10 years. And we are going to today present you an analysis of what we saw. And then we held a conference earlier in the year. We held a conference that had to do with discussing with stakeholders. We believe that conversations are extremely important to ensure that we all better understand ourselves, we know the gray areas, we improve on them, and as a people, we make the civic space more robust. So just a few of the timelines that we've had for this, our own intervention as an organization for the civic space. In 2012, we held a lecture that we had titled Media and Civil Liberties When the Clouds of Fear Gather. It was as the Boko Haram intrusion into our space started to happen. And we felt that it was important that people were free to speak. But at that time, there was something that felt like a dark cloud on the country, and people were fearful to speak. And so we quickly called that conversation together to call attention to the fact that Boko Haram was going to grow. It had the capacity to grow if the government did not move in quickly. And as we have seen, it is now even much more, a problem in our hands. After that, we went on our fifth Wole Soyinka lecture. We went on again to speak about the Freedom of Information Act, the importance of the Freedom of Information Act, and the dictatorship of corruption. In 2007, we particularly highlighted the police brutality. So some people would say that 2020 was the EndSARS campaign, but actually before then, there had been many campaigns about the end of the police brutality. And there was the EndSARS hashtag actually came up in 2017 first. And there was a lot of protest online about it. And we dedicated the award that year to highlighting many of our stories. We found that many of the stories that were supported over the years and that we had rewarded were actually about people in uniform who were brutalizing Nigeria on protest grounds, in public spaces. People were not free to move. And we particularly dedicated that year to speaking about that. Moving on, in 2020, we supported the Cartoonists Association of Nigeria to do a project called Drawing the Line of Free Speech. There were a collection of cartoons that were about incursions into free speech in the country. And we were reflecting on, our country at 60 and, the very important work that cartoonists do in the media to speak, with satire to make you laugh, but also make you think about the issues, that are affecting the country. In the same 2020, we did an in-depth media conference. And at our award, the conference and the award was titled Masked, Not Silenced. We were speaking to the COVID pandemic, but we're also using that as an inroad into speaking about the fact that the media was being masked. Increasingly, we were seeing, media houses shut down, media houses, bombed, media houses, media editors picked up, people who work on social media, who commented on social media being picked up. But particularly for the media, we were saying that we may be masked because there was a pandemic, but it was impossible for anyone to silence the media. We believe that we used that particular event to send a very strong message about the fact that the Nigerian media remains independent, whatever was happening around. And finally, just to spotlight the last award event where we had 14 shortlisted works, it is important to underscore the fact that 9 of these works were actually about brutality by people in uniform. The next slide, please. So why is this event important? We know that an open civic space is very critical to democracy. It is critical to rule of law. It is important that citizens are able to freely engage, freely speak, freely say we disagree, we don't agree with this. We should be free to say that. And so we believe that the report will help us to continue the important conversation regarding this. This report shows attempts to shrink the civic space, but I'm not going to do the reverse work, so I'll just keep that. But we want to importantly underscore that the media is a leader in this civic space, in the independence of the civic space, in the healthiness of the civic space. And finally, we would like you to just join us. Join this move to ensure that our civic space as a country is not closed, that citizens do not have apathy. You know, often people would say the opposite of love is hate, but that is not true. The opposite of love is indifference. And Nigerians are increasingly becoming indifferent about the polity. They are becoming indifferent about democracy. They are becoming indifferent about, you know, the fact that Nigeria can be a better country. We need to activate citizenship. We need to activate people, even as we go into the next election. We need to activate people that they are strong as citizens and they have the power to participate. We want you to please keep the conversation going online, offline, with your neighbors, with people in your own media house or in your own organization. And we want you to please freely share this report. Again, I want to welcome you, and I hope that we all have a good time, even as we all stand up to defend our civic space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was brilliant and rousing opening remarks from Moturayo Alaka, the Executive Director and CEO of Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism. Thank you so much. And I think the hallmark of what she said is that you should be a part. We can't do this alone. Yes, the media has its role, the civil society has its role, but we have to do this together. So I hope you're grabbing our hands so we can make the civic space even much better. Thank you once again, Moturayo Alaka, for your opening remarks. Well, let's move on, shall we? And this is perhaps the meat of this event. And I'd like to welcome this morning to give a review of and officially present this media monitoring report titled Hushed Voices and the Media's Defense of the Civic Space. It is my pleasure to welcome and invite Zainab Suleiman Okino, who is a chairman or chair this time around of the editorial board Blueprint Newspapers. Please join me to welcome the chair of the editorial board Blueprint Newspapers.
Okay, can I talk now?
Oh, yes, you can. We can hear you loud and clear. Please go on.
Okay, good morning, Kayode. And good morning to the organizers of the event. And good morning to my sister that had met at least twice or thrice before this event. I mean, the Executive Director of the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism. So I thank you all for giving me this opportunity to review this report. And in this report, Hushed Voices and the Media's Defense of the Civil Space, I will basically speak about or speak to three or four issues as the imperatives of the civic space itself and assessing the intervention of the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism. And I will take a critical look at the report and its methodology, then some key observations and recommendations. So let's talk about, I hope my introductory remark, people heard me so that I can go straight to the issue.
Yes.
Okay, so that's fine. So, I mean, talking about the imperatives of the civic space, I mean, the civic space is a cardinal anchor for democracy anywhere in the world, and it is imperative to protect it at all costs and by all means possible. Individuals and groups working as members of the civil society in whatever form or shape to enhance the robustness of democratic space, democratic governance should also be encouraged to contribute in whatever ways they can to engender conversations and dialogues within the democratic space. All legal and illegal means of making the civil society organizations to speak in hushed voices or to be shut out of the civic space entirely should not be tolerated by critical stakeholders in nation building. The media should be a free market space for all shades of opinions and ideas in accordance with the dictates of the libertarian theory of the press. As such, it is important that the media continues to guard against infractions of the civic space, the type we saw recently in the NBC clampdown on media houses for merely reporting terrorist activities or disrupting peaceful protests against the government over some unpopular policies. Examples are legion because we have seen this trend over the years. So in trying to assess the intervention of the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism on infractions of the civic space, I want to say that I do know for a fact that the center has been around for some time and has been contributing to the growth of good journalism in Nigeria, especially in the area of investigative journalism, training and retraining, and contributing to the body of knowledge around the profession as much as it has enhanced the career of many media practitioners. Though this monitoring report is novel, I dare say it is long overdue in Nigeria. It ought to have come earlier, given the experience and efforts of the Nigerian media in independent struggle and the enthronement of civil rule and their efforts to sustain democratic tenets in the country. Regardless, the fact that it took us long to get here, the WSCIJ's monitoring report of the civil space is still auspicious. It is an eye-opener to how the media prioritize events in the civic space. It is also important to look at the past as a guide to the present and the future, and therefore I commend the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism and those involved in the collation of the report for looking at infractions in the civic space and pointing the way forward to a better and more robust engagement among different stakeholders in the civic space, while expecting more institutions to join the WSCIJ in unraveling more infractions in the civic space. Now, in taking a critical look at the report and its methodology, the scholarship displayed by the team in putting the report together is a pointer to the depth of the study itself and the skills of those behind it. It is evident from the number of infractions, which is about 150 monitored as reported in 33 publications from across 12 states over a period of 10 years, that substantial resources were invested. For example, on page 13 of the report, under analysis of findings, gives indication of the findings thus. And I'm quoting from the report now. The media reports spotlighted important events within the civic space and reported some infractions that suggest shrinking civic space. Out of the 150 stories monitored, 45, which constitute 30% incidents, occurred in 2021, as shown in Figure 1. These 45 incidents were on protests against unpopular government policies, police brutality, and journalists harassed in the line of duty by state actors, as mostly security agents and non-state actors. Thus, thugs and hoodlums. Albeit, that protest against police brutality and a call for good governance constitute the majority of the 45 incidents. Followed closely is 2022 with 25 incidents representing 18%, and 2020 with 19 stories representing 12.7% of the total 150 stories monitored. The continued rise in the number of civic space infractions between 2020 and 2022 may not be unconnected with the government's intolerance of dissenting voices as more people protested against bad governance. Also, out of the 150 stories monitored, 219 had 15, that's 10% incidents. 214 recorded 11, that's 7.3%. 217, 10 incidents, that's 6.7%. 215 and 216 recorded 9, that's 6% incident. 2012 and 2018 had 2, representing 1.3%, while 2013 had only 1 incident, accounting for the lowest case of civic space infractions reported in the Nigerian media, end of quote. Another interesting thing about the report is the use of triangulation, which is a combination of qualitative and quantitative approaches to interrogate cases of reports of civic space infractions involving content analysis of 150 media reports and participatory panel discussion involving the expertise of lawyers, journalists, human rights activists, and police, all enabled to provide independent views on the Nigerian civic space, as you'll see from the next quote. On this, here is another quote. Out of the 150 incidents of civic infractions across the 36 states and Federal Capital Territory, 37, that's 24.7% incidents, occurred in Abuja, and 29, that's 19.3%, occurred in Lagos. 7, that's 4.7% incidents were traced to Osun State. 6, 4%, Kano. 5, that's 3.3%, Kaduna, and 4, 2.7%, each for Borno, Akwa Ibom, Ebonyi State, Ondo, and Oyo State. Based on the findings, we argue that Abuja and Lagos are famous for civic space infractions. These 2 locations are symbolic to every Nigerian government. Abuja is the administrative capital and Lagos State is the economic capital. Government at the federal and state levels always firm its code on what happens in these 2 locations. And there's a figure 2, to authenticate what I've just read out. Specifically in Lagos State, the Hyundai Lagos State Command PPRO, during a participatory session, acknowledged that statistics available on Twitter show that there are some flashpoints within the state where civic infractions occur that the command is trying to address. According to him, and I'm quoting him now, I will not deny the fact on Twitter if I am to catalog all the complaints I get. The number 1 on the list is Festac, followed by Ikorodu. We are aware of these things. I'm also aware of Ojodo. I'm also aware of Ogudu. The quote above represents the congruence of content analysis and participatory panel interview as exemplified in the report. Now, the painstaking approach by WSCIJ and their findings, as indicated in the foregoing paragraphs, led to a conclusion in the report that there is a decline in the civic space for CSOs and other critical stakeholders. This is believed to have reduced the capacity of CSOs to engage as they ought to be, thereby constituting threats to human rights, and by so doing, allow the state to have a field day in truncating or abusing human rights. The report therefore recommended an expansion of access to civic spaces in the overall interest of all stakeholders for good governance and for the good of the state and humanity. So in a nutshell, the report concluded that all said, it is evident, and I'm also quoting this now from the report, it is evident that the civic space in Nigeria has continued to shrink. Therefore, we concluded that generally state actors are against CSOs expressing dissent or disagreement on poor governance and human rights abuses in Nigeria. Despite the wrath of state actors against CSO, the voices of CSOs are only masked, not silenced, as they are still defending the civic space, end of quote. Now, some key observations and recommendations. Within the length of time it took for the conclusion of the research, there's the tendency that some infractions in the civic space might have been missed. Obviously, this is possible because Nigeria is vast and many things happen around us that are not even reported and definitely could not have been captured. Going forward, I'd suggest the report should cover shorter time frame. The report covers, this particular report covers almost one term of Jonathan's and almost 2 terms of Buhari's administrations. This does not augur well for accountability. With this, a government is unable to account for its infractions. And even if it has to, it becomes retrospective and of no consequence. And of course, no punishment. So the second recommendation is the 150 cases of infractions within a 10-year period may not be true reflections of the actual infractions going on in Nigeria, responsible for shrinking of the civic spaces. There's therefore the need for a wider coverage, and there should be a mechanism of online reporting of infractions of civic cases. With this, technology will help upscale the coverage of infractions. The number of states, that's 11, where infractions were reported is not representative of the country, in my own opinion. I know that it is difficult. The center doesn't have to go the whole hog, I mean, 30 states of the federation, but 11 is not representative enough. So for example, by virtue of our work as journalists and stakeholders generally, there are some states with a lot of infractions that we are all privy to, but they are not covered in this report. So conversely, I'll suggest that more states should be covered in the revised edition or the next edition. The period of the report under review spanning 2 different administrations led by 2 different parties, the PDP and APC governments, makes accountability a bit clumsy too. I mean, you don't know whether you should, in this report, whether you should hold the PDP government of the past responsible for some of these infractions or the current government of APC. So going forward, reports should be in segments of 4 years to take cognizance of our 4-year democratic timeframe, and in the process, make each administration account for their misdeeds in form of civic space infractions. Thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Madam Zainab Suleiman Okino. That was a brilliant review, and I like the fact that you were very clinical with that review. Once again, thank you so much. I have a lot of takeaways from that review myself, but we'll of course delve into that in the coming moments. I'd like to welcome you if you've just joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. You are on, just in case you're wondering, to the public presentation of the Civic Space Guard Media Monitoring Report titled Hushed Voices and the Media's Defense of the Civic Space. Our reviewer, Madam Zainab Suleiman Okino, the chair of the editorial board, Blueprint newspaper, just gave that clinical review. We'll, as I said, delve into that much further, but I'd just like to point you to ways, just in case you've just joined us, ways you can also support, be a part of this drive to ensure our civic space is effective and efficient. If you go through the chat, you see ways you can support and follow the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism. It's our work. We all have to do this together. But I would allow us to, assimilate and just internalize some of the issues raised by our reviewer while we watch this short video, and it is also on the shrinking civic space in Nigeria. We'll watch this video and we'll be back with more conversations.
We're being, forced into hiding. We're being arrested or intimidated, both online and offline.
Citizens are prevented from participating in basic governance. Key groups are excluded from the social, economic, and political life of the country.
People who have different opinions about things that are happening can no longer express themselves without the consequences of either being detained or being put in prison.
So when people say that the civic space in Nigeria is shrinking, they speak to a lot of things that are going on currently in Nigeria.
Closing civic spaces has significant impact on insecurity in any country.
History have told us that when people cannot have conversation about their grievances or get safe space to have conversations so that they can speak their mind, they take laws into their hands.
The changes that will come up because you're stopping people from self-expression will lead to loss of properties and lives.
I believe that the top 3 duties of care of every government should be security of lives and property, the provision of an environment within which people can dream, aspire, and then the protection of those dreams and those aspirations.
Nigerians have learned to get their voices heard. They always express exactly what they feel, and when they are not happy with what they see going on, they engage the process.
If Nigeria, let me just put it that way, wants to utilize civic space to stabilize us, to foster peace and peaceful coexistence, it has to be more receptive to citizen voice.
We must build for ourselves a nation, not just a country, a nation that has a government that is by the people and for the people at all times.
And Nigeria is an interesting country. You have people with different backgrounds, different views, different beliefs, who have grown from different parts of the countryside.
And so there's a huge potential for people to misunderstand each other. We need to encourage a culture of healthy debate, of dialogue, as a means of addressing our differences.
Cultural norms have impact on almost everything in our lives, but most especially within the African context. When the elder speaks, it is the final word. When the ruler speaks, it's the final word. When the husband speaks, there is no pushback.
But young people speak up about the issues that they face and they get dismissed or they get punished or they get even a further restriction of the rights that they're trying to complain about.
For persons with disabilities living in the shrinking space, it means discrimination, it means exclusion, it means underrepresentation.
I think that we need to continue to express our opinions and ourselves, and we should not be constrained.
But as we do this, let's organize properly. Let's educate ourselves. Let's use data to inform our conversation and our policies and our decision making as young people. And it is not a competition.
I think the Nigeria we should aspire to is a Nigeria in which every person is respected as stated by our constitution, where we're all equal before the law.
I believe that this nation, Nigeria, can be greater than the sum of its parts if our civic space accommodates not just the voices of the few, but of everyone.
Thank you very much. Such moving images and words, really, from those people. And we'll switch gears now. That has sort of set the tone for what we're going to be doing next. And we'll be hearing from some stakeholders on this issue of civic space infractions, and they will be giving us insights. Based on this report, we're staying within the context of this report, which has just been reviewed and it's being presented publicly. But just before I welcome the very first stakeholder, I'd like to also let you know that you can be a part of this eventually. So if you would like to make a comment, if you have an observation, please put your name in the chat box, put your name and your organization, so that eventually when it is time to take your comments as well, I can always go there and refer to you so you can, air your opinion and your voice. After all, it is important to ensure that we all air our opinions and make our voices heard. In the meantime, please join me to welcome Amara Nwakwa, who is a Director, Public Policy Initiative, Shehu Yaradua Foundation, for his comment. And I'd like to just put this out there that each of our stakeholders have 3 minutes to speak to this issue of civic space infractions. Amara Nwakwa, it's over to you now. Okay, in the meantime, I think that we don't have Amara just yet, so we'll come back to Amara. But let's take now Mr. Anthony Okechukwu Ojukwu, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria, and he's the executive secretary of the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria. He is represented here today by Benedict Agu, who's a special assistant and head of the monitoring department of the NHRC. Mr. Benedict Agu, it's over to you now. Mr. Benedict,
can you hear me?
Hear me kindly? Oh, yes, we can. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I would like to express the apologies of the Chief Tony Ojukwu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, OFR, for not being physically present. Actually had directed me to just thank everyone for this important work the center is doing. We've been able to go through the report, which is very, very wonderful work. We all know what is happening, that as far as the civil space is concerned in Nigeria, is shrinking by the day. Nobody should have doubt about that. But like had been said, all of us have this country. We don't have any other country. For Human Rights Commission, we know.
Apologies for that, Mr. Benedict.
My 3 minutes.
Please go ahead.
So we just want to
okay.
make a comment about some issues that we need to capture here. First of all, the report is good, like we have just said, but we noticed that an issue that has to do with data coverage on the chapter that deals with analysis of Nigerian media did not document social media, although social media was dealt with in different places in the report, but it does not actually put in social media. We are on the chapter that deals with analysis of Nigerian social media. Then there's what we call non-inclusion of interrogating the work of National Human Rights Commission. The report documents government agencies that are ministry and department that have been involved in infractions or violation of human rights of Nigerian citizens. It would have been also good to document the activities of National Human Rights Commission while protecting, promoting, and enforcing human rights of Nigerians. That for us, that is a gap. Another gap we have noticed is that has to do with non-disaggregation of data according to age. There is a general statement about data on gender of people who survived violations, but this is not segregated according to age, enabling us to know the age of people involved. And it does seem that journalists that are living with disabilities equally is not treated. Does it mean that there are no infractions involving people living with disabilities? To us, it looks like that is that is a gap, because the SDG goal says that you should not leave anyone behind. Last but not the least, we do know that it is not mentioned in that report whether some of these efforts, we are taken to court for a redress, or no effort has been made equally to interrogate the treatment mechanism, complaint treatment of mechanism we have here as a human rights institution of the country that actually protects Nigeria. For instance, when the Adenju had issue, he has to come here, and we are part of the system that help him to get redress. All these issue areas we think will help to make the report stronger when it's being revised, and it is going to enrich the report. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Benedict Agu, for your observations. He is representing the Executive Secretary of the NHRC, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Anthony Ojukwu. Thank you once again, Mr. Agu, for your observations. I'll move on to our next stakeholder. Juliana Francis is a 2014 WSCIJ Nigerian Investigative Journalist of the Year. Juliana, it's over to you now. You have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Kayode. I've gone through the report, and I'm just speaking from the point of view as a journalist. I think it's a good report, and I think it's timely. Why do I think it's timely? Because the elections are just here upon us, and we are going to experience and see the civic space shrinking further. So, but I just want to talk to journalists who are defenders and protectors of the civic space. Don't be scared. It's not going to be easy. Why do we get harassed? Why do we get attacked? Why do they target us? It's because you are exposing, you are trying to expose, or you are exposing corruption. You are trying to bring down an empire. You are trying to bring out a personality. So it's not going to be easy. So all this will keep coming, it will keep coming, and I just want us to keep our eyes on the ball. There's no journalist here that has not been harassed or targeted. I remember the first time I went to cover, and I went for an investigation. It was even Femi Adesina that sent me on that investigation, and they wanted to lock me up because the policewoman used a boiling ring on her housemate, a minor, and I was supposed to be locked up, So we are going to be seeing more of that. But I want to encourage us as a journalist, as protectors of the civic space, that we should keep our eyes on the ball. We as journalists, it has not been easy for us, but even in Africa, I want to believe that we as Nigerian journalists, we have the most vibrant media. We are not too easily scared. We are not easily cowed, We work in a hostile environment where even the lawmakers do not respect the law. That is why even FOI, they just pissed on it. Nobody is respecting it. Even people that we are trying to fight for sometimes, they are hostile towards us. But yet we have to keep on moving. We cannot stop, because that is what we'll be trained to do, to expose infrastructure, to expose the infractions, to expose human rights violations. We just have to do our job. Even now, it's getting like the kitchen, the heat in the kitchen is becoming hot, because even skit makers, they are beginning to feel the heat too. This year alone, so many people have been arrested. 2 skit makers that did a skit on Ganduje. They are right now in prison. I hope we are all aware of that. So it's not going to get easy, but I want to say something. While we are protecting the civic space, what are we doing as journalists to protect ourselves? Because like I keep saying, protection of the civic space is a collective responsibility. But these days, we are having too many journalists weaponizing journalism in a negative form. What do I mean? They blackmail. And this shouldn't be so, because we are supposed to be respected people. If we are protecting the civic space, we should be respected. We shouldn't give rooms for them to crack down on us. Don't open that room. They are already using regulations and the laws, restrictive policies. We should not give room for other measures that they will use to clamp down on us. So, and we don't think and say that because we are journalists, we can write or post anything online and get away with it. Last month, people, okay, I should stop?
You can just make that point in 10 seconds if you can.
Okay, last month, we saw what happened in Kwara State. It was a post on the WhatsApp and they grabbed those boys. So we should be careful and mindful of the things we post because we are journalists, you know. We should be mindful more than ever of saying things or making reports without evidence. We are investigative reporters, and for that, we should have evidence for whatever we report. And that will earn us more respect. Thank you.
I think that is really instructive. Thank you so much. She's a journalist with years of experience, and that's obvious from the fact that she's a laureate of the Wole Soyinka Award for Investigative Reporting, Juliana Francis. Thank you so much for sharing from your experience. I think it's really good to hear from you, and of course, know that others can do it. Thank you once again. We'll move to Olukunle Akinrinade, also 2021 WSCIJ Nigerian Investigative Journalist of the Year. I think it's just brilliant to hear from the experience such that you can know, which way to go about it. So Olukunle Akinrinade, it's over to you now.
Thank you, Kayode. And good morning to everybody. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Oh, yes, you are. You're audible.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
All
We
right.
can hear you loud and clear.
From what the last speaker said, it's Juliana Francis. We need to do a lot more, as journalists to ensure that the civic space that we are talking about, is, adequately protected. We owe the society that. I just came back from a conference in South Africa, sponsored by WSCIJ, Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism. And, in one of the issues we raised there, I expect the fact that Nigeria, has some of the best journalists in the continent. And, I did a bit of presentation and, some of the journalists there were shocked that we were even courageous more than they are there. So it's not that we are lacking in courage, but I think we still need to do a lot more to ensure that the civic space is actually properly guided. I say so because of my, a little experience, over the years. Most journalists in Nigeria dwell on first-hand information given to them by organizations and individuals. And now that the election is nearing, we need to take our game much higher than what we currently do. The story that fetched me the award last year actually came in form of a press release. A press release was sent out, and everybody published that press release without, trying to even take some moments to look at the content properly to see that there's a lot more, about what the community, were trying to push out to the media. And so for me, I took further steps to go to those communities and see firsthand, what they are going through. So it's not about somebody pushing out certain narratives to you and doing it. It's about digging. So we need to do a lot more in that regard. I'm aware that we fluctuate between two theories of the media, considered information cognitive theory and development theory. In development theory that we are trying to embrace in this part of the world to actually guide our operations and activities. But if you apply social that, our duty is first of all service to the society. And if you are called to offer certain service to society, you should be able to bring them who benefits directly from your services. And that is the trend of my remarks this morning. We owe the society a lot. You should not be afraid. Because you're afraid, now you want to drop the those who are in the corridor of power to the plight of the citizens. So, in a nutshell, the kind of journalism that we all should subscribe to is the one.
Well, Olukole, we're having challenges with your connection.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I got carried away with your experience. And I'd like to say thank you so much for sharing. And I think some of the takeaways for me is the fact that Nigeria has some of the best journalists, and we've seen that time and time again. So yet again, it's a challenge if you're just coming up that indeed you can be one of the best in the world. And you've heard from someone, Olukole Akinrade, he has encouraged you as well. So indeed, we can do this. Do not be afraid. Thank you once again, Olukole Akinrade, the 2021 WSCIJ Nigerian Investigative Journalist of the Year. Well, we'll move on now, but just before that, if you'd like to also participate, if you'd like to share your thoughts on this, please indicate in the chat box, indicates with your name and your organization so I can easily identify you and call you up. So after we're done with the stakeholders' comments and contributions, will come to you. So kindly indicate in the chat box with your name and your organization, indicates that you'd like to comment on this report. So let's move on now. I'll be inviting Mary Abayomi Fatile, also a winner, radio category, the Wole Soyinka Award for Investigative Reporting 2021. Mary, would love to hear from you on this. So please, you have 3 minutes. Just go ahead. Mary, I see you're having challenges with your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Mary, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm sorry, you'll have to start again. We missed all of the things you were saying.
Thank you very much, Kayode. Good afternoon, all. I want to say thanks to the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism for obliging me the opportunity to have attended the just concluded African Investigative Conference, where I learned a lot. Juliana, thank you. I've listened to everyone, and I want to say thanks to what Juliana just said not too long, that we should be on our toes. We shouldn't tear ourselves apart because it has always been the issue. We should be the backbone of the civil space as journalists. The story that just gave me this award, had to do with a young boy, Michael Bamishaye, who worked with SPA, a company we all know in Lagos State. They were asked to stay at home during the COVID, and suddenly the company employed lesser hands and paid them off stipends, and Michael said he wasn't going to collect. Because he refused, they got the police to arrest him for reporting to Radio Nigeria that he wasn't collecting the stipend. The police went to his house, picked him up, and detained him. They were going to send him to court the following day. So I quickly ran to Ilupeju police station. Getting there, the DPO said Michael forged the company's letterheaded paper and employed himself. So I asked him that if he forged the company's letterheaded paper, how come he has been going on leave, getting his salary before now? And they denied everything. At the end, I put on, when I discovered that they weren't going to release Michael, I now started calling the former AIG then, Iliasu. Immediately, the DPO started begging me, Madam, stop and let's discuss. Apparently, the CSO was already in an office waiting for Michael to be detained and taken to the court the following day and be thrown into the prison. That was where we started from. They were now appealing. The CSO came out and said, I shouldn't take up the case. We need to negotiate and all that. And I refused. We continued our investigation, wrote to Panti, wrote to the former CP then, Udumosu, wrote to who now transferred the case to Panti. And when we got there, we found out that the company, from the lawyer whom we got, that the company, since inception in Lagos State, they've not been paying tax. And I ran to the tax office to find out if truly they've been paying, because I have discovered they've not been paying. The tax office started dodging me and called Michael to talk to me to forget about the story that the company has appealed to them, that SPA has written to them and appealing. I refused. We continued and they kept appealing to Michael and finally paid him what was due. Even after the award, I still went to tax office because I want to get to the root of it. As we speak right now, they've still been dodging me. But what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is, we as journalists, yes, we are not properly paid. We are not properly paid, but we should do the right thing. Put that envelope aside when it comes to our work and do the right thing. Because even at the time I was doing this story, most journalists were against me. That's why I said I want to commend Juliana Francis for what she said, that we should stop saying negative things about ourselves. Maybe your colleague is doing a story and because somebody has settled you aside, you just want to destroy that person. We should be on our toe. I was in South Africa, like what Kule just said. They respected us when we were talking. We have good hands. It's just that we have so many bloggers now that armchair journalists that will just sit and they put www. When you are trying to do something, somebody will just call them and just give a stipend to them, and the next thing, they want to destroy your story. But I want to appeal to my fellow colleagues, no matter what anyone is doing, don't be deterred, because even at times, the people you are trying to protect will just suddenly turn back and say, no, I don't want this story to continue.
Mary, I know if I allow you to go on, you probably never stop because you have such a reservoir of knowledge and experience. And I must say it's such an honor to share from that, but we have to keep it short to 3 minutes. I got carried away yet again. I gave you way more than 3 minutes, but thank you so much for sharing. Mary Abayomi Fatile is a winner radio category, the Wole Soyinka Award for Investigative Reporting 2021. And you can just hear her experience, the story she followed. And that's the thing, you have to follow the story up till the end. Thank you so much, Mary. I'd just like to mention before I call up our next stakeholder that if you want to share your own thoughts as well, you know what, just raise your hand instead, as it's been indicated in the chat box. You can raise your e-hand and then you can, when it's time, I could call you. You can also put your name, but it's important for you to raise your hand so I can easily select right here. So if you'd like to share your thoughts on this, kindly raise your hand, e-hand that is. Thank you very much. Let's move on now to our next speaker. Olushola Odumosu is a public relations officer, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, to share the thoughts on this report and generally some of the experiences you've had. You have 3 minutes, please, to share your thoughts. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. And very good morning to everybody. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you so very much. And it's a great honor to be part of this conversation. Much voices and media's defense of the civil space. From my own point of view, as an officer of the law, political relations of NSCDC, I'll be speaking from the angle of security.
Pardon me, This is Olushola. If you can hear me, we're losing your audio. So maybe if you can move closer to your device so we can get full value of your contribution.
All right, thank you very much. I hope it's better now.
Well, I imagine. Please go ahead.
Okay, I guess this must be from network. It's just managed like that. So basically,
Please go on.
yeah, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, I feel privileged to be part of this conversation, and I see the civic space as one space that we really need to guard very carefully and protect. And of course, there's no way we can do that in isolation, even as security agencies. There is need for synergy and collaboration and cooperation with the media. Of course, we're all trying to work towards the same goal in the country for national security's sake. And of course, I expect that any society that does not give freedom to association, freedom of expression, freedom of participation, and all the necessary freedom that could help us obtain and ensure good governance, the country is not ready to begin. And as a democratic country that we find ourselves, the media, as well as the government and the security agencies, need to work hand in hand for the good of all. Looking at the situation of the country at the moment, where security is giving each and every one of us sleepless nights, and of course, on the part of the government is trying its best to ensure that security is ensured and assured for every Nigerian and every friend of Nigeria residing in this country. But the role we have to play as journalists, as security agencies, is to ensure that space is not guarded in such a way that it will be inimical to the progress of the country. We, on our part, as security agencies, for civil defense, we are as civil as we can in our orientation, in our operations. We try as much as possible to be close to the citizen. We're very, very close to the grassroots because we have a comparative advantage, and that advantage is the fact that we live among the people. We don't stay in the barracks. We wine and dine with the people. We relate with the people. So it is easy for us to get information from the people to be able to provide solutions to some of this crisis we find ourselves. And of course, the media too, they are serious partners in progress. And so we, on our part, we have our role to play as well. In as much as there is freedom of expression, freedom of association, it is also necessary for us to note that the kind of reportage that we engage in should be such that will promote the unity, progress, and security of this country. And what do I mean by that? You know, we find ourselves being confronted with this insecurity, these challenges that is very, very alien to us. You know, terrorism hasn't been part of us, but today it's staring us in the face. So what kind of reportage are we doing that will glorify insecurity? That is one area I want the media to critically look at in this conversation. We tend to blow beyond proportion certain issues that has to do with the downfall of the country, attacks and the rest of that. And we don't forget that most of these people, the insurgents, the terrorists, the kidnappers, the bandits, they are all very, very used to these devices, this new media. Whatever news we churn out, you know so well that even before some of us get it, these bandits, these criminals, they have it at one sweep. So naturally, when this reportage comes into play, you discover that it makes them feel good. It fans their ego and all of that. And you see, it gives them the motivation to want to do more, to want to cause more havoc, to send signals.
Well, apologies, DCC. Pardon me, I'll have to come in now because of time. Again, I was biased. I gave you way more than 3 minutes because I mean, we understand the work that you do. But DCC Olushola Odumosu, I must say that it's refreshing to hear from the security operatives. I mean, we couldn't put a face to the voice, but at least we could put a voice to the NSCDC. He is a public relations officer of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. Would like to thank you so much. And thank you for the work you are doing as well. After all, it's a work for all of us. Thank you, DCC Olushola Odumosu, for your comments this morning, this afternoon, actually.
Thank you for the questions.
I saw Olatunji, thank you very much. I saw that you were raising your hand, so you could just click on that icon so we can see that your hands are raised electronically, so you don't have to keep your hand up. And also type in the comment section your name and your organization so I can properly introduce you. I see Ikechukwu Ibe's hand is up as well. Kindly type your name into the chat box as well as your organization so I can properly identify you. So we'll be moving now to comments from our guests. But I just want to put this in that if you're on social media, any of the platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whichever one, the WSCIJ is actually online as well. So you could just go to Twitter, Instagram, and just tag the WSCIJ. The handle is W Soyinka Centre. So let me share thoughts, some of the lines that you think will be instructive for others from this particular event. You could put it on Twitter and put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, so people can know that indeed there's work to be done and we have kickstarted that work. So again, the handle across social media is W Soyinka Centre. Centre is spelled with T-R-E. You find them there. So we can, of course, share this with the world. Thank you very much. So I'll be calling our guests now to get your thoughts on this presentation, the report, and some of the issues that have come up. So I'll be starting with Ikechukwu Ibe. Right. So I'll be starting with Ikechukwu Ibe for your comments. Please, you have 90 seconds to give your thoughts so we can get value for our time. Ikechukwu Ibe, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, my name is Ikechukwu Ibe. Yeah, a photojournalist with Daily Trust. I myself, I have been a victim of all these things we're discussing. Precisely in 2017, I was sent by my editor to go and cover an accident scene here in Abuja, Jabi precisely. On reaching the scene and commenced work, the next minute, the whole security man there just pounced on me and started beating me. In fact, I was beaten to stupor and left half naked. What's the problem? There's this task force that was dragging with a taxi, and the taxi mistakenly ran into an eatery in Jabi and packed inside the eatery. So I was sent by my editor to go and get the photo. On reaching there and commenced work, I was surprised at what happened to me. 4 security men lifted me up and took me to their Black Maria and stoned me inside. Not even keep me, they stoned me inside the Black Maria. Later, 2 minutes later, they came back and asked of my memory card because the time I was dragging my camera with them, I smartly removed my memory card to return the pictures. But they later came back after they checked my camera and did not see my memory card. They now came back and jacked me out of the Black Maria, handle my jeans trouser and tear it. I was almost half naked. Before I managed to, when they returned me back to the Black Maria, I managed to collect a phone from someone I met inside the Black Maria there and call my editor. They now rushed from the office to the scene and they talked to them. Before you know it, the DPO of Life Camp, where the thing happened, came around and they took all of us to the police station where we wrote statements of what happened. And after that, that was it up to today. I've not had anything from the task force or anybody to date. So that's my personal experience. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Ikechukwu Ibe. I mean, those are some of the dangers we have to face on a daily basis on the job. But thank you for holding the fort, for keeping to that oath. I don't know if we publicly swear oaths, but I imagine we do that, not like the doctors do, but at least to keep into the tenets of journalism. Thank you so much for your work. I'll be calling on Olatunji now. I see your hand is raised as well. Please go ahead. You have 90 seconds. The host will unmute you now. Just a moment. Okay, go ahead now.
Can you hear me, Coyote?
Yes, please, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. And my name is Olatunji Yobasa. I'm also a winner of Wole Soyinka. Then I want to thank Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism for this program. Then I want to give them kudos and our participants all over wherever we are reaching from. Well, my own experience will, I will come from the security angle of it. Like before Ikechukwu speaks, there was one security officer, Mr. Odumosu, that speaks. Well, with all he said, me, I want to disagree with him totally. Because in Nigerian journalism, me, I'm a photojournalist. We are at the front burner of every event. Either protest, either Shiite versus police, either just name it. A photojournalist needs to be there to get close shot, not a close shot, a picture that tells stories. Like me, Ikechukwu, we know ourselves in Abuja when we do our job. We always go to where it happens, that we get something reasonable. But some security men, the way, I don't know, probably they could forgive me. So some of them, I don't know the way they are trained. Like this Mr. Odumosu that was talking. I was a victim. I'm a victim at NIMC office. Last year during the NIM registration, my camera was damaged. A DSS officer, a civil defense officer damaged my camera, beat me up. Myself, Atonda of Son, Oluwaremo of leadership, we are beaten up. People, paper reported it and all that. Nothing was done. But it took the intervention of one of our senior guys in Abuja there, Alhaji Yusuf of the Nation. He was the one that has been talking to the man that you can't just do journalists like this, you need to do something like this, you need to do something for him, until the camera was retrieved by them. So me, I need to talk to our journalists, our security people. Like one of our colleagues said that she went to report a case at the police station. Then the policeman went to arrest. Police need to ask questions. They can't just say, okay, they've called police for this person, they've called police for this journalist, then arrest him, or they say, no, they need to ask questions as well. Okay, Mr. Man, what is really going on here? You express yourself. So in my own angle, the security men still need to do more, asking questions. Not that they will just go to an event or they'll get to anywhere, beat up a journalist, arrest and detain. It happens in Ogun State when a reporter reports the story of Dapo Abiodun. It's not done anywhere in the world. Thank you, Kayode.
Thank you so much, Olatunji. Really, it now makes sense when you hear that journalism or journalists generally are like an endangered species. But we'll keep doing our work for a nation and for God. Thank you again, Olatunji. I mean, God keep you. Well, we'll move on now to one of our stakeholders. We're meant to have him first, but I mean, incidentally, we're having him now. Better late than never. And it's my pleasure to welcome this afternoon Amara Nwakpa, who is the Director of Public Policy Initiative, the Shehu Yaradua Foundation. Good afternoon, Mr. Nwakpa. It's over to you now.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Kayode. How are you?
Very well.
Sorry, I'm a bit late, but we've had several activities going on here at the Yaradua Center. And so I had to attend all of them. Fortunately, I tried to get out of some of them, but couldn't. But it's a pleasure to join.
Okay, I'm not sure if we lost you there, but let me just say it's a pleasure to have you as well. So while we wait for him to reconnect, It looks like he's having difficulty with his connection. I mean, these things happen, right? While we wait for Mr. Nwakwa to rejoin, he's the Director of Public Policy Initiative, Shehu Yaradua Foundation. I'd like to just see if, okay, Olatunji, can you please put down your hand? I was almost going to call you again to speak, so kindly put down your hand. Okay, thank you very much for that one. I'm almost tempted to share my experience as well, but because of time, we're going to move on. We'll come back to Amara Nwakwa, but I'd like to just let you know that today's event will not have been possible without the joint support of Luminate Group, MacArthur Foundation, Ford Foundation, and the Open Society Foundations Africa, that's OSF Africa, for the Civic Space Guard. And at this point, I don't know if we have Mr. Kole Shatima with us, so we can get his thoughts as well, especially his goodwill message, because really this is a noble idea for journalists, yes, but for our nation at large. So it's important to also hear from some of those people who have made this possible, so we can understand the thinking and maybe key into this moving forward. So I'd like to be sure if we have Dr. Kole Shatima with us. Oh, great, Amara is back. So before we get Dr. Kole's goodwill message, let's go back to Amara. Amara, do we have you now? Can we trust your connection?
Yes, my connection is good. I was just introducing myself. And if I can have my video back, I would be very happy. So at least you can see my face. All right. The Yaradua Foundation is very pleased to be supporting this initiative. This initiative to protect the civic space and to protect media rights and media freedoms, and to galvanize civil society as well as journalists to guard the civic space and to protect our civil liberties. This speaks to the very core of Yaradua Foundation's vision and our mission. We're doing this through the instrument of what we call the Joint Civic Defense Fund. And the Joint Civic Defense Fund is jointly funded by Luminate, MacArthur Foundation, Ford Foundation, Open Society Foundation as well. But we also have a collection of civil society organizations representing all the various sectors who are part of the Joint Civic Defense Fund. And the purpose of the fund is to make rapid and sometimes very small but rapid support to civil society organizations and to human rights defenders, and also to the media, journalists, and people who are at the forefront of LGBT to protect the civic space, to protect the rights of citizens to express themselves, to hold government accountable, and to continue to engage, to protect and promote their interests. So we're very proud to support the work that the Wole Soyinka Centre is doing. We're happy to continue to support it. We're happy to continue to encourage across the sector of media to continue to hold government accountable and continue to defend the rights of media practitioners and journalists across Nigeria to speak freely, to write freely, and to reflect and measure the performance of government and duty bearers. And so this is the reason why we made this grant. And we're happy to see the progress that the Wole Soyinka Centre has made in this regard. We're also open to engage on this issue and with other stakeholders looking forward, especially through the instrumentality of the Joint Civic Defense Fund. So if you out there have identified, an incident or an area where the Joint Civic Defense Fund can be of assistance and can support the work to continue to protect the civic space and to defend civic freedoms, and to protect human rights defenders, you can reach out to us and we would be happy to engage. Thank you.
Oh, thank you indeed, Amara Nwakwa. Finally, we had you, and it was worth the wait, I must say. He's the Director of Public Policy Initiative, Shehu Yaradua Foundation. Thank you so much. And clearly there is so much engagement to be done on this. I mean, this report is just the start of the work we have ahead of us. As I said, if you're on social media, I mean, speak about this. I mean, the hashtag you can use is right there in the chat box. Let's push the awareness out there. There's so much to be done. I mean, listen to the experiences we heard earlier. And I mean, they're shocking. I imagine that they should be followed through so we don't have this again, but it's dependent on what we do from here. So thank you again. We'll be taking the goodwill message now. Just allow me confirm if we have our next speaker, if he's joined us. He's meant to join any moment from now. So we'll just hold up for him just for a little bit. That's Dr. Wole Soyinka, the director of MacArthur Foundation Africa Office, for his goodwill. Hold on for a moment. In the meantime, is Chiamaka here? I do not see Chiamaka, so okay, just to be sure, Chiamaka is not here as well. So we'll just hold up for a moment and take. Okay, Chiamaka is here actually. Oh, there you are. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Chiamaka Onwebunam, who is the Assistant Program Officer at WSCIJ, for the vote of thanks. I think it's been an amazing experience. So much takeaways from here. So Chiamaka, it's over to you for the vote of thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Kayode. Well, I wouldn't say we've come to the end of the conversation, but I'm just going to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody that have joined the public presentation of the Civic Space Media Monitoring Report titled Host Voices and the Media Defense of the Civic Space. I'll especially thank our funders, the Luminate Group, the MacArthur Foundation, the Open Society Foundation Africa for their support towards the action of this project and reports. I also want to thank our reviewer for the day, Zainab Suleiman Okino, for her input, her thoughts on the report and the feedback given to us. It's duly noted, Ma. Thank you so much. I will also fail to thank all the stakeholders that have lent their voices today towards the report, the Wole Soyinka laureates who have also shared their experiences on the issues of civic space and what has happened to them in line of duty as journalists. I will also fail to thank the Wole Soyinka team, my team, especially our leader, Executive Director, CEO Motoya Alaka, for leading the team and pushing forward for the success of this report. Well done, everybody, Afolabi, Yakub, Samson, Oge, Hope, for all the efforts towards the results of this report. I also want to thank all the organizations represented here today, the civil society groups, journalists, students from the Mass Communication Department of University of Lagos. I can see you all. Thank you so much. And I would like to plead that the link for the report have been dropped in the chat box. Let's engage, especially for the media and the journalists here today. There's so much in that report. There's a recommendation given to everybody. I'd like us to spread this conversation. Let's engage with it. Let's spread the news of the civic space. And also believe that the civic space, safety of civic space is all our duty. All the stakeholders involved with the citizen, the media, and the civil society group to work together to make the civic space a safe place. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all. Bye.
Well, thank you very much, Chiamaka. So we had to switch things up a bit just to make the most of our time. But yes, that moment we've been anticipating is finally here. Dr. Wole Soyinka has since joined us as a director, MacArthur Foundation Africa Office. And I think it's really important to hear from him to get his goodwill message, sort of to wrap this up, because it's been a very, very productive event here today. Dr. Wole Soyinka, it's good to have you. I mean, the wait, I imagine, will be worth it. It's over to you now.
Thank you very much, Kayode. And I don't think I should say much. I think that all the most important things have been done, which is the report. But when Motorayo sent the message, I told her that, this is too late now. You don't, you know, the short notice was too short that I will not be able to join because I have other commitments. But I'm happy to join at this point and just to thank everyone for this work that have been done by the Soyinka Centre. So when Moturai sent me the mail, she said that I'm the chair of the Civic Defense Fund. And I know that Amara knows this very well, that I have been protesting, why am I the chair of this fund when no one has given me an appointment letter, no benefits, no terms of reference. They only call me just to mark statements at these meetings and other things. But I'm very happy to do that. And probably, as you are already aware, this is a fund that was set up by 4 organizations. The Luminate, the Open Society, Ford Foundation, and MacArthur Foundation. I think they came together and said that, look, although civic space per se is not our area of individual work, but probably if we can pool our resources together and see how we may be able to do this work, because we think this is critical, very, very important, because whatever work that we do, whether it is in MacArthur or Ford or Open Society or Luminate, unless we have an opportunity for civil society groups and organizations, including the media, to thrive and do the work that they need to do, I don't think that any of our work will be successful, because unless we have that openness and the ability of civic organizations to flourish and do the work they do, we will not be able to achieve what we intend to do. So that is really overall interest as to why we thought that it is very important for the 4 foundations to come together and see how we may be able to work together and ensure that the civic space is thriving and enabling it to do the work that it needs to do, so that in some ways it's our selfish interest that if you people are not there, and if you don't have the opportunity to do the work that you do, then whatever we are aiming to do will not succeed. So that in some ways it's our selfish interest that we have to support civic space to enable that to do. But as also this is critical for our democracy, critical for giving voice to the voiceless people, to ensuring that this work is done, and to ensure that we don't undermine the foundation's work or the work that everyone is doing. It's also critical that part of the work we do is also in terms of the work environment, because all of us, we support organizations, and we're trying to ensure that, our own workplace that people we support, they don't also work in a very toxic environment, an environment of sexual harassment, an environment of bullying, an environment of that makes it difficult for the people who are working in those environments to do the work that they do. So we're very happy, very excited to give the opportunity to the Soyinka Centre to organize this event. I hope that the report will be something that all of us will digest and see how we may be able to continue to fight and to ensure that civic society, civic space is actually thrives and protected and promoted in this society. I have always said that we have underestimated the importance of civil society organizations in our country. I think we think them only in terms of troublemakers. At least that's what many people in government think of civil society. I think that the contribution that civil society is making, whether in terms of water supply, in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of leprosy, in terms of everything that you can, mental health, and I think that civil society are doing that. These are really, really important contributions that people are making, but people don't think of them as important work that have been done. So thank you very much for all the good work that all of you are doing, and we don't want to take more of your time. And thank you very much, Kaide, for giving me the opportunity to say a word or two as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kole Shetima. He is the Director of MacArthur Foundation Africa Office. Thank you for a good message. And yes, it was worth the wait, I must say. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little trouble, really. Yes, there might be troublemakers, but a good trouble, at least for the benefit of humanity and our nation, is good. And I think it's important to also try to help people see it that way. I mean, the trouble is actually for the common good. So we're not bad troublemakers. We're good troublemakers. Thank you so much. I think it was quite insightful to have you speak on this one. Well, it's been a very interesting conversation, I must say. As I said, I was tempted to share my experience, but because of time, perhaps we'll have to do this again, do a part 2. As I said earlier on, you can always engage on and off social media. The link for the report you will find, and please download, share as much as you can. This information is for everybody, not to keep, but to act on it. That is the important part. We need to act on it. So if you're a journalist, you have to think of angles, stories to come up with from this, because this is a seed. It's meant to germinate and help us have a better civic space in Nigeria for the good of our nation and generations to come. I could go on and on, but we have to anchor at this point. I'd like to thank everyone that has joined us virtually. And as you've seen that message, support the movement. That is the handle, W Soyinka Centre, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. You can also see the link to the Civic Space Guard Media Monitoring Report titled Hushed Voices and the Media's Defense of the Civic Space. It is for your use, as I said, and for the use of everyone. That link is right there. So please, please, please make use of it. Again, I'd like to thank you so much for being a part of this. It's been an hour, 42 minutes of very, very interesting conversation. On behalf of the Wole Soyinka Centre for Investigative Journalism and the other partners, which you have heard from today, I'd like to say thank you so much again for your time, and I wish you the very best. This is for the good of our nation, Nigeria. So I say, God bless Nigeria.
No, 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 no. Oh, yeah. I'm in chains, you're in chains too. Our uniforms and you are uniforms too. I'm a prisoner, you're a prisoner too, Mr. Jailer. Oh, fears, you have fears too. I'll die, but you self will die too. Life is beautiful, don't you think so too, Mr. Jailer? I'm talking to you, Jailer. Stop calling me a prisoner. Let him is without sin be the first to cast the stone, Mr. Jailer, Mr. Jailer.